Alright, surprise, surprise. Like I've been saying, we had some more big wins. The train's chugging along. Chugga, chugga, chugga. Chugga, chugga, chugga. Choo, choo. It can't be stopped. Public opinion has drastically changed over firearms. We're going to talk about some of these big wins and what the implications mean for the NFA. But before we do that, I just want to remind you, if you'd like to help support the channel directly, you can purchase one of these patches. This particular one is battle hardened. What this does is reduce the effects of tacticals on you. For example, it will reduce how long you're impaired from a flashbang. It will prevent you from bursting into flames when you're exposed to tear gas. Really good perk to add to your plate carrier. Otherwise, you can purchase a Freedom Beanie. And any orders over $30, and yes, that's the total price, not like before shipping, you get the mystery patch. Unfortunately, I can't show you what the mystery patch looks like, and I can't sell this to you. My design has absolutely nothing to do with what it looks like, and as soon as somebody pointed out what it looks like, I was like, oh, that's bad. I can't sell that, and I can't show it on my channel. I still have people saying this is a Satanist star after I've explained it how many times? There's no way I'd be able to explain away what this design actually is compared to what it kind of looks like. So I kind of screwed the pooch on that. So if you'd like to get it, just place an order over $30 and you'll get this for absolutely free. I'll just throw it in your order and you can decide what you think it looks like and whether you want to throw it away or keep it. And remember, every dollar I earn from these sales, I'm going to take without lube, without spit, I'm going to just jam that directly into my bank account, because we're nice people. And every dollar that helps me get this helps destroy their narrative. Remember, the whole point of taking me down was to make me go quiet, make me get off of YouTube, and destroy me. But instead, with your guys' support, what they actually did is basically verify everything I've been saying for years to be 100% true. It doesn't even matter anymore what happens to me. Whether I get convicted, released, or acquitted, it's on paper, and that will never go away what they did, and everybody knows about it. Instead of getting what they hoped for, which was, I'm sorry, Mr. ATF agent, I'm sorry. Please, like, let me... I apologize for questioning your authority. You are right. Please don't do what you did to CRS to me. Because that's what they were hoping for an outcome, and it did not go that way. So, what do we got for some recent victories? Number one, the ATF decided a while ago that they wanted to basically classify everything as a gun. Now, I know that sounds a little bit hyperdramatic, but you got to understand, they were trying to go after 80%ers. An 80%er is a nothing. Just a big fat nothing burger. It's a piece of metal or a plastic. You can't do anything with it. It's not a firearm. It will not function as such, which is cool. Because then anybody that wants to build their own firearm to stay off of registries, which I totally get, because if you go to a gun shop, you are most definitely on a registry. Like, that is a fact. You are on a logbook. They made it so they can't even destroy the logbooks after a certain period of time anymore. It all goes to the ATF, where they get the gun you bought, your address, your full name, everything, the serial number on the firearm. So I get why a lot of people don't want to be on there. For me, it doesn't really matter because I'm on the internet, so there's no point at all to doing anything like that. I might as well just go to the gun shop. But for you, that is not on the internet and not doing videos and not posting pictures of your stuff all over Facebook, it makes sense. And then there's a whole building aspect. A lot of people feel real accomplished just by building a firearm. Like, that is something they made, they machined out the receiver, they hand selected each and every part, they put it all together, and they made something they are proud of. And I get that. That is awesome. That is a really good feeling on the inside. Plus, building your own firearm, you understand the mechanics more. So if it has some sort of failure, it's easier for you to fix. Like, again, I get that. Well, anyways, the ATF was like, no, that's a ghost gun. And we want to get rid of ghost guns, which, a true, legitimate ghost gun is like a Colt 1911A1 with a serial number on it, put right next to it a legitimate Colt 1911A1. You can't tell the difference. The whole point is you have this fake serial number, so you, hypothetically, you would use this in a crime and then drop it at the scene, which, who does that? So, we'll just remove that part because that doesn't happen, which makes serial numbers themselves irrelevant. Nobody goes in, robs a bank, hey, put all the money in the bag, and they take the bag of money and they're like, just so you know, I'm leaving my firearm right here. Tell the ATF agent to go ahead and run that serial number because I bought it under my name and it's going to trace back to me. No, the whole point of serial numbers is to wrap other people into a crime. They find a gun wherever they happen to find the gun. Maybe they kicked in someone's door and shot their dog or whatever. The point is they have a gun and then they run the serial number and they look at who bought it. Then they go and grill them. They're like, hey, we know you bought this firearm. You did it as a straw purchase. And in the event you say anything that isn't 100% legal, now they got 2 people charged with a crime. It's not about tracking down murders. It's not about solving bank robberies. It's trying to double the amount of people that get caught up in a particular gun crime. Which gun crimes in themselves, that's a whole other can of worms we're not even going to talk about. But anyway, so they were like, we don't want these because there's no serial numbers. As if they were relevant in the first place. They're not. But, okay, whatever, so I get that. The point is, where do you draw the line then? Where exactly is the legal line for what is and is not a firearm? Is the ore I literally take out of the ground a firearm now? Is it the intent to make a firearm that makes that a firearm? Without having some sort of legal test you can apply to a piece of whatever to determine whether it is or is not a firearm, well, then everything's a firearm. Anybody, even if you don't own guns, could be charged with a firearm. It wasn't too long ago the ATF said a shoelace was a machine gun, which means you are in fact in possession of 2 illegal machine guns if the good courts did not shut them down. Things like this have to be shut down because where do you draw the line then? There has to be a clear line that people can easily follow. You can go right up to the line, you can stand on the line, but if you cross this line, now it's a firearm. And you gotta know that. You have to. So, anyway, they were like, we want to just be able to arbitrarily determine anything to be a firearm, so if there's any political dissidence, or we're not happy with what somebody says, we can just be like, oh, that right there, unfortunately, is a firearm. I know that you didn't intend it to be a firearm, but it is, so you're going to jail for illegal transfer of a firearm. So that went up to court. Obviously, the only decision that could have ever been made is, no, that's not okay, because how do we determine what's a firearm if we allow that to be okay? Because literally anything could be a firearm at that point, if you don't have a clear standard and a clear line. So, P80 won that case. As a matter of fact, they're already back in business. But they kind of already knew they were going to win the case. I mean, there's really only one choice a court can make. Because again, backing the train on up again, where's the line then? It's pretty much the same thing with my case. The whole point is they're trying to push to see that they can determine anything they want. At all. It doesn't matter. It could be an image on your computer screen. That could be a machine gun. They're trying to erase the line of where the ATF determines a machine gun so they can make the call at will, on the fly, on a case-by-case basis. So, the next big thing that happened was the handgun roster. That got shut down in California, which was a ridiculous law that made no legal sense whatsoever, did absolutely nothing for public safety. It was literally there to just strip away people's firearms slowly, case by case, get people wrapped up in the legal system because they didn't follow some imaginary safety measure, and it got shut down. Now, you can't go out and buy a handgun yet, unfortunately. The judge put a 14-day window on his stay Because obviously the government's going to appeal. It's going to go up to appeals court. Appeals court's going to drag their feet and say, we don't know what to do. And just drag the process out. Hopefully that one day there'll be some new Supreme Court decision or a bill from Congress that will make the case moot. So we'll have to see what happens with that. It could still be years down the road before we hear some sort of resolution. Or, I mean, there's the possibility the government appeals. It goes to appeals court. They put a rush on it. Find whatever they're going to find. And then it makes its way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court rules that no, handguns are in common use. We already talked about this in Heller, like in 2008. Why is this in front of us? That is unconstitutional. Get it the hell out. Again, we won't know. So how does all of this affect the NFA? Is the NFA going to be next? And that's a complicated question. I'm leaning towards no. I think what's going to happen with the NFA, number one, obviously because of the pistol braces, the first thing that's going to be up on the chopping block is SBRs. Pistols are in common use, 100% legal. Rifles are in common use, 100% legal. So why is the middle ground? We have the small one, we got the big one. Why is the middle size regulated? And I believe that's going to be a very solid case. As the pistol brace thing pushes through, I believe that we are going to have SBRs taken off the NFA sooner than later. Probably within the next couple of years. Because it only makes logical sense. You can't honestly, like in good faith, look at an SBR and be able to tell me how that is more dangerous, more unusual. What about an SBR is different from a pistol? What can an SBR do that a pistol can't or a rifle can't do? And the answer is nothing. Nothing at all. So I think the first thing that's going to happen, obviously because of the pistol brace thing, I think the ATF overreached from that. They had their big old fat neck out there trying to bite off the cheese and whack! Their head's going to get chopped off for that. Not literally. I'm not saying anything like that. Don't come and arrest me, please. I mean, like, hypothetically, their legal arm reached out to grab too much legal stuff, and that's going to get chopped. You know what? Let's just get rid of the whole chopping off thing. They overreached, and they're getting shut down. There we go. That's a more politically correct word to use. So, I believe the SBRs are going to fall. There is no reason to have them on the NFA at all. It makes no sense at all. Pistols are legal. Rifles are legal. Why are SBRs heavily regulated? So I believe that's going to fall. I believe the next thing that's going to fall is obviously silencers. Again, the ATF already got the ball rolling on this. They did that to themselves. How they did that was with thing. They effectively, I mean, they actually did this. Like, they pulled it off successfully. Removed the legal separation from what is and what is not. You cannot tell anymore with a silencer. There's no legal test you can apply to something. There's no legal test I can apply to this remote that the remote will fail and a silencer will pass. At all. Nothing. There's nothing I can use to determine whether this is or is not a silencer. And I truly mean that. There's no test. Because it doesn't have to screw on the gun anymore. It doesn't have to reduce the sound of a shot. It doesn't have to be able to successfully have a bullet go through it. I can literally list this on the internet and use the keywords silencer. And the ATF uses keywords to determine what a silencer is. Like I said, there's no legal test, none at all, that separates this remote from a real silencer. And because of the whole thing, they already kind of put themselves in fishy water, and now the ATF is being sued by the state of Texas because the state of Texas is like, hey, federal government, you can't control what happens inside of our state. You have two main jobs: handle foreign affairs and handle state-to-state transactions. Only when it crosses a state line Can you apply tax code to it? Can you do anything about it? So we want it so our silencers that are made in Texas, they never leave Texas, they stay in Texas the whole entire time, are not affected by the NFA in any way, shape, or form. And their case is looking good. And I believe it's even going to look better when they start trying to determine what is and is not a silencer. The ATF's main argument is it's not protected by the Second Amendment because it's not a firearm. So therefore, it skirts the Second Amendment. Second Amendment does not cover it. However, we want to regulate it because Congress legally determined it to be a firearm. So they want their cake and they want to eat it too. I believe that's going to collapse in on itself. Silencers will ultimately come off of the NFA. Again, that's going to be a little bit down the road. The next big thing, I think it'll go SBRs, silencers, and then we got the machine gun roster. I always get these dates screwed up. I can't remember if it's 68 or 86. The numbers are too similar. But one of those two dates, they made a roster where you cannot put a newly manufactured machine gun onto the NFA. Now, the NFA is questionable by itself. Does the government have the authority to be able to tax a right? The Supreme Court said no on multiple occasions, but they always seem to carve a section out when it comes to guns. So the next logical step is, okay, so how can you arrest people for not paying a tax you do not allow them to pay? That's the ultimate question that I believe will appear in front of the Supreme Court. How is this guy guilty for not paying a tax, but the government said he's not allowed to pay the tax? He would have paid it. Well, certainly. He would have handed them the $200. Everything would have been hunky-dory, but they said no. And we've already had cases go up to the Supreme Court that's been on that issue, but they haven't made a determination for all the inferior courts to follow yet. They just basically threw out the case. And like, nope, case dismissed because you're right. He would have paid it, or even if he wouldn't have, he didn't have a choice because the government wouldn't allow him to do it. And for a tax to be legitimate, it has to be collected. Because if a tax isn't collected, then it's not a tax, it's a restriction. You can't put a restriction on the Second Amendment, so that makes the NFA tax, for machine guns specifically, because they won't collect it anymore, a restriction on the Second Amendment. We all know what the Second Amendment says, so that is not allowed. So I believe the next step, they'll go SBRs, silencers, then they will reopen the machine gun roster. Because how can they not say they're not infringing if they're infringing? Now I get it, all gun laws are an infringement, but we're taking this one step at a time. Machine gun roster opens up. So at this point we would have SBRs off the NFA, silencers off the NFA. The only thing that's on the NFA still is machine guns, and you can register new ones. So then the question comes up, okay, the NFA's been open for XYZ amount of years, we'll say 10 years or so. Machine guns are everywhere. Everyone owns one, but they're all being taxed right now. They're all registered, they're all got this crazy tax stamp applied to it. The next thing that would follow would be dangerous and unusual. Now, I've already argued, I was purple in the face, that dangerous and unusual is made-up history. It has no bearing in reality. And if you go back to 1791, where they took the term dangerous and unusual from, it's a part of a law called an affray, which has absolutely nothing to do with any particular type of firearm. It's how the firearm is brandished. However, since I've been in this process a little bit longer, I know that you can't just go to the Supreme Court and be like, hey, you guys are idiots. Yeah, that's not real. That's not a real thing. It's already been put in there. Judge Scalia has already put it in there, and it's going to stay in there. However, let's pretend it's been 5, maybe 10 years since the NFA's opened up. How unusual are machine guns if everyone owns one? They're no longer unusual. They're no longer dangerous because all guns are dangerous. So removing dangerous out of the equation, because all guns are dangerous, there's nobody in their right mind that can argue a gun isn't dangerous. Now it's been open for like 10 years. A whole bunch of people owns machine guns. They're all across the civilian population. Now they're no longer unusual. So you remove dangerous and unusual from the NFA, And what leg does the NFA have left to stand on it? At that point, that's when the NFA fails. Now this is the long game. It's going to take years. Hopefully in my children's lifetime, they'll get to see a day when the Constitution is followed as written instead of this perversion we're living in right now. However, we're just working with what we got. Anyway, appreciate you guys watching my videos. Remember, any orders at shoponlytacticalfans.com, you get a free mystery patch. And if you'd like to help support the channel and you don't feel comfortable buying merchandise from me, you can always just click on the affiliate links in the description down below. Just by clicking on the link. Even if you don't purchase what that particular link is for, just clicking on it. And doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway. I'll kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.